want to try to make this look as normal as possible. If you could give us your name and title first.
Okay. Linda Lord, and I am the Associate Dean for Student Affairs at the College of Veterinary Medicine at Ohio State University.
Okay. Dr. Lord, we're doing this interview for Tisha Thompson, WRC TV in Washington, D.C. I'm going over the questions. The question list, the first one on here was, what prompted you to do the study on the scanners?
So I first got interested in this because actually both of my dogs ran away, and I went through quite a process to get them back, and it got me interested in the whole pet reunification recovery process when somebody loses an animal, and so it was actually my own personal experience that got me interested in this line of research.
What surprised you about the results?
Really, I think that if you think about it, what we found in terms of the microchip study was that the scanners themselves really work pretty well. There are always, nothing's ever 100%, but I think that we've got good universal scanners that are on the market, and we showed in our study that they really do very well in terms of detecting microchips in a shelter setting.
Explain in terms most pet owners would understand about why the United States is different from the rest of the world when it comes to scanners.
We're a little different because we haven't really followed the universal standard in terms of the frequency that the microchip communicates with the scanner. It's a radio frequency device, and so that's going to work at a certain frequency, and we've chosen to use a frequency that is not universally accepted. What that means is just as we start to incorporate the universal standards, that we have to have scanners that can read more than one frequency. It makes it a little bit more challenging, but we are getting to the point where we're working around that fairly well.
Let me throw this in there. With the changes in frequency, especially this past 2 years, a lot of different areas, frequencies were bought by the FCC. Has this interfered with the scanners that you have put in different animals?
No, it has no relationship.
What can the companies do better in terms of scanners?
That one word.
Okay. Let's move on to the actual information on the microchip. What surprised you about the study?
So what people need to keep in mind, we did a study looking at the registration, is the only information that is stored on a microchip is simply the number. So there's a unique identification number that is stored on every microchip. And that number, it's really the owner's responsibility to make sure that the information that is registered with the microchip company that manufactured the chip is actually up to date and accurate. So an owner's cell phone number, their address, all of that pertinent information is kept in a database. It's not stored on the microchip. That's a common misunderstanding among pet owners. And so anytime you move, you change your cell phone number, any contact information, it's critical that you get in touch with the company and let them know that you've changed your information. But if I can add one more thing, you know, what we found is that 3/4 of animals that enter into shelters that have a microchip, that the shelters were able to find the owners. That's really quite good. So I think sometimes people get frustrated and think that the microchip doesn't work, and in fact, many times it does. When they don't work, it does tend to be because the owner's registration information is not up to date in the database.
Okay. In our particular situation, the owner has told by a pet store that the dog was microchipped and that her information was up to date, which ended up not being the case. What should owners know about pet stores and microchipping? Should talk about how the pet stores use them more for inventory and are notorious for not updating information. So that's a little bit more of what you just spoke about.
Yeah, and so if you purchase an animal from a pet store, know that if it has been microchipped, that microchip might have been used by the broker that sold the animal for inventory control. It's not the pet store's job to update the owner information in the database. The owner's really going to have to do that once they've purchased the animal. So what the information that's stored in the registry from when that animal was sold is probably the breeder's information. That's not going to help reunite an animal with their owner. So people really need to know if they get an animal from a pet store, really anywhere where you adopt an animal, you purchase an animal from a breeder, you adopt from a shelter, however you acquire your animal, it's important that you make sure your information is updated in the registry.
And then it doesn't necessarily mean that every place you might pick up or buy an animal that place has this microchipped installed in the animal.
That's right. Not everybody, unfortunately, is microchipping right now. Hopefully we're getting more and more people that are doing it, because it really is a great way to try to reunite an animal with their owner. Many animal shelters now automatically, when you adopt, that information does automatically get uploaded into the registry from your adoption information. And veterinarians who also microchip do a very good job of, again, getting that information into the microchip registry database. But ultimately the responsibility still falls with the pet owner.
Okay. What are the common assumptions pet owners make about microchipping that can get them into trouble?
Sure.
More about what
So I think one of the big ones is that it's a GPS device. It's not. It is just a passive transponder that basically has that number on it, and if a scanner is used to scan that an animal with a microchip, that number can be read, and then it can be used to find. So common misunderstanding from owners. Also common misunderstanding thinking that their information about themselves is actually stored on the microchip. It's not. It's only kept in a database.
And then I'm assuming, if I could follow up on this, that you could probably maybe get a scanner that might be a little bit more expensive, but more of that type of information, maybe a GPS or being able to update the information could be installed.
No, the way the microchips are set up is they're really only set up right now to store the number. They're not set up to store all that additional information. So it's not really a function of the scanner, it's just a function of the technology.
So the advancement of that type of technology hasn't come up to those standards yet, or is that something we can expect down the road?
It might be down the road, and there are GPS collars that owners can get to use with their animals in terms of having a GPS tracking device, but you've got battery concerns in terms of keeping those charged. They're fairly expensive, so I think that right now, the microchip's a fantastic permanent way to identify an animal to help reunite them with their owner.
Okay. What do pet owners need to make sure that they do if they do have a microchip in their animal?
Again, it's just they need to make sure that information is registered. I recommend when they go in for their annual veterinary exams that they ask to make sure to have it scanned to make sure it's still functional. It should be. There's no reason, but it's nice to check. And the other thing I encourage owners to do in terms of the whole pet reunification process is to make sure they also have visual identification on their animal. Use a collar, have an ID tag on there. They may also put their rabies tag if their animal's rabies vaccinated. All of those things, so that there's something that if somebody finds a lost animal, that they can actually look at a tag to reunite them as well. And microchip companies will provide a tag as well, and that has an 800 number on it. So if you put that on the collar, it's another way just to help speed up the reunification process.
Is it even worth microchipping your pet?
Yes, I'm a firm believer that every pet owner ought to microchip their animal. It's a permanent way of identifying your pet, and it is a fabulous. Every day we get hundreds of animals in this country that get reunited with their owners from the use of a microchip. I think collars are great with visual ID, but they can get lost, they can come off, and I think a combination of those two are the most foolproof way we have to make sure that animals get back to their owners.
I'm curious, because I'm usually doing hard news. Is there a device or something of security measures that prevents people from tapping into this microchip and erasing the information or taking the information and doing something?
Yeah, they really, somebody could not erase the number that's off the microchip. It's permanently in there.
Okay, okay. So there's a security devices set up for it?
I don't know if it's a security device, it's just the nature of the technology.
Okay. Is there anything else I left out that you would want to add? I basically covered all the questions that they had on here.
No, just that I think microchipping is easy. You have it done once. It's not painful. It's not hard on the animal, and it's a really great way to have identification for your pet. So we get frustrated sometimes when we have stories of, unfortunately, when the microchip might not get the animal home. But if people can keep their information up to date, I think we really have a good way of reuniting pets.
I'm curious as far as your pets. They can range from dogs, cats, to guinea pigs.
Sure.
I mean, is there any special type of pet that maybe you wouldn't recommend?
Well, I think if you got into a really particularly small animal, you might not. But I think for the common ones that are a risk for getting loose, such as dogs and cats, people microchip rabbits, they microchip ferrets, they microchip guinea pigs. So, if you were going to get into a very tiny species, you might think twice about it. But no, very common. People microchip birds, so on and so forth.
Okay. Anything else that
No, I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you. I appreciate it. Take a look at things. What's her name? Is it a her?
He.
He?
Stewie.
Stewie? Okay. All right, Stewie. He's a cute little thing. How old is he?
He's about a year and a half.
Is that his tag around his neck? Is that the...
Yeah, that's just a personal ID tag that's got his
okay.
name and phone number.
Okay. Okay. But it is...
Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is, this is an example of a microchip that's not implanted. So you can see it's about the size of a grain of rice. It's very small.
Okay, hold that right there. That is very small. What size is that?
About the size of a grain of rice.
Wow.
And this is what's implanted with a needle underneath the skin of an animal when they're microchipped.
Okay. Okay.
So the problem will happen in a veterinary office or in an animal shelter when an animal's being scanned is the scanner will be turned on, and then basically it will just be taken over an animal, and then you heard that little beep, and that was the detection of the microchip, and then there's the microchip number that is on here. So this is how number pops up, and then you basically are going to call the company and have that microchip number, report that number, and then they will help with this, assist with locating the owner so that they can be reunited with the pet.
So is the number on there like a phone number? Or?
No, this is a unique number that every animal, so if you want to stop for a second, I don't particularly want my dog's number on TV. The process, that was the key.
Correct.
This chip may be, I've had them in boxes, and so, yeah, I'm going to get a different chip. That was a strange one.
If I can show you scanning the number one more time.
Okay. On the dog or on the...
No, on there.
So that's the microchip number. That's just an example of a microchip. And so what happens is a shelter or a veterinarian can call the company that has the registry for this, and the company will then help the veterinarian or the shelter locate the pet owner. And again, it's all based on the owner's...
Do you have an idea of the cost of something like this?
It varies. Microchips are implanted. I would say the average cost is somewhere between $30 to $60, but that can vary, depending on what part of the country you're in, certainly.
Right.
But it's not an expensive item, particularly when you think that it lasts the lifetime of the pet.
Mm-hmm.
It may be a little more with the registry fee as well, but again, very inexpensive when you think about the value. What we're going to do is run the scanner over the animal, and depending, he's moving around a little bit, you'll find the microchip number pops up.
Natural sound.
Okay.
Or they don't get that. So these are different scanner devices, just made from different manufacturers.
That's correct. What are you? Are you filming him?
Yeah. He seems so relaxed there. What kind of dog is he?
He's a Shih Tzu.
Oh, okay. Those are the ones that they don't shed, huh?
Very little.
Okay. Yeah, my wife said if I have one, that's one I got to